Welcome to Stargate SG-1 for the first time. Still, not a Star Trek podcast. My name is Jeff Akin, and I'm watching Stargate SG-1 for the first time.
And I'm Brent Allen, and I'm also watching Stargate SG-1 for the 47th time. But for the first time, I am going through this series looking for what Stargate is trying to teach us. Those sci-fi messages. You know, those things that hold up a mirror to society, give us hope that things can be better in the future, or just plain tell us how to be better human beings to one another.
This week, Brent, we're watching Seth, which is the name of my boss, and I think this is going to be an episode dedicated to him. We're just going to see awesome leadership happening, supportive stuff, people doing great things for their teams. This is just going to be a reflection from, 1999 on my boss here in 2024 as we record this thing. Totally makes sense.
Well, July 2nd, 1999, to be exact, which was the original air date of this particular episode, second episode, season 3. Seth, and I mean, Jeff, you absolutely nailed it. Boss, great leadership stuff.
Yeah, there you go.
Nailed it, man. You got it. I don't even know why we need to watch the episode now.
Go as high level as I possibly can. I'm going to get one of these right someday.
Well, hey, listen, I really want to encourage everybody to make sure you stick around because I've got some really cool kind of behind the scenes stuff for this. And it's not really behind the scenes, just other things. We've got some, I want to encourage everybody to make sure you stick around for the talk at the end because there's some fun information to share about this episode. But with that, Jeff, it is time for us to go watch this episode. If you're joining us for the very first time, first of all, welcome. You're amazing. You're awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. While you're here, please click subscribe, whether it's to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed you're listening to or wherever you happen to be. Hit subscribe. Also, please leave us a rating and review. And the way this is working is Jeff and I are going to watch this episode right now for the very first time. If you're hanging out with us on YouTube, you're actually going to get the video of that. It'll be chopped up and all that kind of stuff, be YouTube compliant. However, if you want the full unedited version, head over to patreon.com/Bye Nerds. And you guys can catch that one over there.
If you're listening on a podcasting app, you're about to gate into the future. You're going to catch us after we watch the episode. You're going to hear my first time reactions. You're going to hear any of the sci-fi messages Brent found in this one. And I am eager to build those memories so I can give you that reaction. Brent, let's dive into Seth.
Chevron 7 locked.
All right. Well, I want to welcome back all of our listeners on the audio podcast who just gated into the future. We have caught up with you. Jeff and I have just finished watching Seth for the very first time. Jeff, before you go, I will tell you, this is an episode I almost always skip.
Really?
And I got about halfway into it going, why do I skip this episode? Maybe like 3/5 of the way. It was a little more than half. Why do I skip this episode? This is really good. And then I was like, oh yeah, this is why I skipped this episode. But that's Brent's thought. Jeff, you had your first time viewing of this. Take us through it, bud. What you got about the episode, Seth?
This is a fun episode. It was cool. Yeah, I enjoyed this one. I'm not going to say I enjoyed it a lot, but I enjoyed it. I think we're in season 3. Right, and for so many 90s sci-fi shows, season 3 is where the ball really starts rolling.
Usually towards the end of the season, I should say.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
I think it has like good episodes, but it really picks up towards the end of the season, typically.
But to me, it's less about the episodes and more about the momentum and theme and just like being able to write the episode. They've figured out the world, the characters, and those things, and like this felt like that. This felt like Stargate has never not felt fully realized. Like from Children of the Gods, it's felt like a complete universe. But for one of the first times, this was just like, we're going to dive in to Evil Gould of the Week and just go, and it's going to work because I don't have to tell you what a Zat gun is. I'm going to pull Nishta out of nowhere, and it's just going to make sense because, of course, there's something like Nishta. Like, I get it.
Well, and you've kind of already seen it a couple of times.
Exactly. Or versions of, like they even mentioned, like Hathor's thing. Oh, yeah, but even worse.
Yeah, or that thing that, Poffus used on Ryak, my son. And you didn't have to ask who Ryak was. You knew.
Got all this stuff. And so I think there's been a couple episodes that I say is like the culmination of stuff. And this isn't the culmination in like the apex, the peak or anything, but this is an episode that was built on the episodes that came before it. I mean, there's some meat to this. You're gonna have some sci-fi message stuff to talk about. I know that, but beyond that, there's not a lot of meat. This is just this is a Gould of the Week episode. That's all it is. It was fun. It was interesting. I think my favorite. I had a couple pieces in there that I liked. One was learning more about the System Lords. There's a couple dozen System Lords, a couple thousand Gould, and the Tok'ra are keeping track of them and stuff like that. So okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then Sam got a Gould hand thing, and totally rocked it. I want her to never stop wearing that hand thing. If in the next episode she's not wearing it, I'll be like, "What, Selmac? Come on, dude!"
It's not exactly standard issue.
The Tok'ra probably have more, or they could make one or steal one.
Well, but I mean, no, but like she's U.S. Air Force. Doesn't she have to have like certain pieces of gear and stuff? Like, does she not get something special? Like,
that's special qualification, right? So she'll be,
okay,
Captain Carter / Gould hand thing.
Special qualification. Yeah, because she has a dead Gould inside her body. That's her qualification.
It's kind of a big deal.
What is her qualification? She can make it work.
Here, you put it on. Tell me what happens. Nothing? Here you go.
She literally buried a Gould with it. That
was a slick scene. Just right into the ground. I like how he used the word blended.
Yeah.
You've been blended.
Well, isn't that the word that the Trill use?
Joined.
Oh, joined. Yeah.
I really didn't like the actor that played Seth.
Hey, fun facts about him.
Yeah.
A few episodes back in season 2, he played Daniel Jackson's father.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Remember the episode we were going back in the memories and stuff?
Yeah.
He was Daniel Jackson's dad.
Which is fascinating because in that episode, he got crushed by a bunch of rocks. And in this episode, he got blasted down into the ground as if he was hit with a rock. I am really insensitive about his death.
Right. Let's start counting how many times Daniel's dad gets killed via rock.
Right. But yeah, I could tell what they were going for with him. And he wasn't bad, but it was just like, oh, you got the 50 Cent version of the guy you were looking for. And it was okay. But yeah, no, it's an enjoyable episode. I wonder why, because Daniel, they're talking about this guy. So his name at first was Satesh.
Yeah.
We're looking for Satesh. And then Daniel's like, oh, that's Seth or all these different names. Why did he stick with Seth? I don't know. I feel like
it's the modernized version of the name in English, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. I would have gone with Set, but I mean, that's just me. If I was a Gould God System Lord, I'd go by Set. Brent, there's some prime messages in this one. I'm curious to hear your take on the sci-fi messages in Seth.
Well, before I get to that, Jeff, couple of things in this episode. You did name this. Gould goes by many names. We talked a little bit about this during the video, so I want to make sure we just hit it here for our audio folks real quick. We do discover that there are many Goulds out there, but only a few dozen have attained the level of System Lord. I gotta tell you, it's really probably not even that many, to tell you the truth. Like, it might be a dozen.
Or a baker's dozen, right? A couple dozen. But
most of the Gould, though, are in service to other Gould. And I will tell you, this is something you will begin to see more of. Oh, this Gould serves that Gould and certain things like that. This is the episode, the first time we ever see Teal'c laugh, and we got a pretty good chuckle out of that as well.
Yeah, I can't believe I missed that. That was one of my favorite things. He had a joke.
Also, let's track, Jeff, how many Gould have been killed by SG-1?
So now we have Hathor in theory.
Yeah.
Did Harror got killed?
Harror?
No. There was other dude. This would be the third?
Yeah. There's Ra. We killed Ra.
Yes. Yeah. That's okay. Ra.
And then Hathor in last episode, and then Seth in this episode.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Before we gate into the rest of this episode, did you know you're missing most of the content from this podcast? Stargate SG-1 for the first time has an active and exciting Patreon that you can join right now by clicking the link in the show notes. Not only will you get access to the full, unedited podcast and reaction videos, you'll also be able to join a growing, vibrant, maybe even an intergalactic community. Subscribers even get access to all of our content from Babylon 5 for the first time. Don't miss out on this content and the amazing people. Just click the link in the show notes. Tilk thinks you should do it right now.
Indeed.
I wonder who else. We talk about them being the fifth race, right? If you're going to go down who's killed a chunk of Gould, I bet that the other four were named in Thor's chariot. Or the fifth race, actually. Yeah.
So this Gould takes the personality of Seth. And if you remember, these Gould are not the gods of old. They are portraying the gods of old, which I still find very weird.
Mm-hmm.
But the real life mythology of Seth, actually, I find very fascinating. Seth was the brother of the Egyptian god Osiris, whom I'm sure you've probably heard.
Mm-hmm.
Osiris was the first, thought to be the first pharaoh of Egypt, the first ruler of Egypt, according to mythology, not in real life. But basically, Seth was his brother, and he was the god of the desert, of foreign lands, thunderstorms, earthquakes, eclipses, stuff like that. He was considered very, very powerful, very, very frightening.
Mm-hmm.
He often was used as the patron god of various pharaohs throughout time, particularly those who wanted to come off as powerful and frightening. Ramses and, these conquerors. I'm going to take Seth as my god, right? Seth killed his brother Osiris to take his throne, chopped him up into pieces, scattered him all around Egypt. Eventually Horus, who I think was Seth's or Osiris's son, or maybe other brother. I think Horus might have been the other brother or something like that. He went around, found all the body parts, gave them to Isis, Osiris's wife. She sewed him back up, and he becomes the lord of the underworld. Osiris does.
Okay.
And he eventually defeated Seth in combat. Now, post this defeat, Seth was later adopted by Ra, and basically Ra made him Thor. He was the god of thunder.
And rock and roll.
Right? And he protected Ra from Apophis, because the way they would say is when the sun goes down, because Ra was the sun god, right?
Mm-hmm.
When the sun goes down, he's traveling through the underworld at night, is what Ra was doing to come up on the other side so he could go around. So while he was traveling through the underworld every night, Seth would be protecting Ra as he goes through from Apophis.
Okay.
A little bit of the real world mythology of Seth, or Set, or Setesh.
It's kind of cool.
So you asked me about the messages. So, the litmus test we use here, right, is holding up a mirror to society, giving us hope that things can be better in the future. I'm not going to say we had any of that, really. Maybe a little bit. Just, it kind of all ties back together. But certainly, how do we be better human beings to one another? Probably could get a little bit of mirror to society, although I'm going to say this is more to the individuals than opposed to society as a whole. But to me, I mean, Jeff, this really focuses on the relationship between parents and children. We had Jacob come in, and we learned right at the top of the episode, he and his son are very much estranged, so much so that Sam is also estranged.
Yeah.
We saw earlier that Jacob and Sam kind of didn't necessarily always get along in previous episodes. And Jacob's sitting here saying, "Oh, I'm not mad at him, and he didn't come see me, and I'm not hurt. He's not even my son anymore," and blah, 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 blah. And then we get this dad looking for Tommy, right? Looking for his son. And he's like, "Man, I'm going to do anything." And we were fighting. He just literally holding up a mirror to Jacob. And here's Teal just death glaring Jacob. "How could a father not love his son, Jacob Carter?" Right? Getting in his face. And there's just this great line that boils the whole thing down. And you see the love of the son when he pops up out of the hole, Tommy, and he's like, "Tommy," he didn't even let him out of the hole. We're like, "Dude, there's people below the ladder. Get out of the hole." Right? But they're hugging and they're embracing, and all that crap, whatever separated them, didn't matter at that point.
All went away.
But there had been a crisis. There had been something that happened. All of a sudden it was cured. We see at the end, Jacob shows up on Mark's doorstep. You rightly pointed out, last Mark knew his dad died.
Mm-hmm.
Or about died or whatever. And all of a sudden, and there's no word spoken. They just look. His dad grabs him and hugs him, and he sort of stands there for a second and then puts his arms around his dad and is super cool with him meeting his kids. "Come on in, Dad. Let's have dinner," or whatever.
Let's catch up.
Yeah. That one didn't really feel like it had that same averting the crisis thing, but maybe it did. maybe you could pull that in. But anyway,
opened the door. It clearly opened the door, literally and figuratively, to potentially doing that.
And I think it really, it's not the, hey, this is how it works in the real world, as much as here's the metaphor. Here's the, we got to wrap this up in 10 seconds. So here we go. Teal'c says the line. He says the line. He says, there are many things that are complicated. I'm going to paraphrase what he said. He said, there are many things that are complicated. Loving one's children ought not be.
Wow.
Wow. Like, talk about wisdom right there from the mouth of Teal'c, man. Sometimes it is, as Jacob said, but it ought not be. Loving your children should not be complicated and should not be hard. I say that with the understanding that there are lots of viewers out there right now. There are lots of people who are listening to my raspy voice go, yeah, but Brent, you don't understand what's going on between me and my kid. Yeah, but Brent, you don't understand what's going on between me and my dad. Look, let me tell you what. The last 2 words my biological father ever said to me was F you. Yeah, that's right. It's the last 2 words he ever said to me. I know what it is to be in a difficult relationship with a parent. It's probably what drives me as a parent to make sure that lines are constantly clear with my kids. I never pretend to be perfect with my kids. When I screw up, and I do, I own it. I own it quick. I apologize and I ask forgiveness for my kids so we can move on and come right back to being good. And you know what? I'm fortunate enough, and I'm very happy to say I have a great relationship with my kids.
You do.
And I love those 2. I really do. I love those 2. Everything in my life really revolves around those 2.
You have super cool kids. Like, they are great.
They are cool. They get most of that from their mom. Let's just be honest.
That's my nice way of saying it. You have a really great family because your wife's really the star of the show.
She really is. She is amazing. But the truth is that I keep those short accounts because of what happened with my dad. You know what I mean? Like I'm intentional about that. I understand that things ought not be difficult, but I can say this. Throughout my entire life with my biological father, I always wanted a relationship with him.
Yeah.
Even when things were bad, I wanted the I'm sorry. I wanted the when Jacob shows up and he hugs Mark, I want the hug. And literally, that's all it really needed to take. Again, I'm not speaking to everyone's situation out there. I know things can be difficult, but in the words of Teal'c, they ought not be. I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying they ought not be. I don't know what it takes to find forgiveness. I don't know what it takes to extend. I don't know what it takes to get out there, but I think there is something that is deeply innate in the relationship between a parent and child that even when things aren't good, you want them to be. It is potentially the, dare I say, the easiest relationship to mend, or at least the most accessible relationship to mend.
The easiest door to open, to use my earlier metaphor.
Yeah, because it's still mom and dad. My mom and dad are never their first names to me. I know for some people they may, but even when when Mark opens the door and he sees his dad sitting there, it's not saying, "Oh, hi, General. Hi, Jacob." It's Dad. You know what I mean? Like it's still that. So in that there's a hope in the future that, listen, if you're estranged from a child or any loved one or parent, there is hope that can be reconciled. A mirror to society. Again, this might be more mirrors to individuals to tell us how to be better humans to one another. Go to them, do the work, do whatever it takes. It might require more than showing up on the doorstep and giving them a hug.
Yeah, that's very true.
But do the work, because there are many things in life that are complicated, but loving your children shouldn't be one.
Shouldn't be. And I want to be really clear that I'm saying shouldn't be, because I'm not saying they're not. And I want to dive in on that point because I think it's really important. I know people, and very close to me, who are in situations where it's not safe for them to be around their kids. Fair. Yeah. It's a real thing, and boundaries are important. And when I say safe, I don't just mean physically. It can be emotional, it can be financial, for a lot of people, but it puts them in a place where it's not safe. So, you're saying it really well. It ought not to be, but sometimes it is. I just really want to double down on, for those of you out there who have put up and are enforcing boundaries with your kids for these reasons, you're doing the right thing. And what I have often thought, and this is kind of my take on the message there, is that doesn't mean you stop loving them, right? Like I think my opinion, the world according to Jeff, your love for your child should truly be unconditional and eternal.
Yeah.
Forever. Now that doesn't mean you have to like them. Love and like are different things. And so keeping that in mind, I can love them from afar with boundaries in place that protect all of us. But that love is there. And part of that love being there means the door is never locked.
Mm.
So I have these boundaries up for my safety, for their safety, people's safety. That's not a forever thing. It might be for you a forever thing, but there's always that chance, that opportunity that they can come back, become the prodigal son or daughter, and come back.
And frankly, that's what I'm talking about. There's always that one, like that particular relationship there. It is always the one that is, again, not the easiest, but the potential is always there.
Exactly.
Like that one. And I think that in generally that's shared from both sides. And Jeff, I thank you for saying that, because you're 1,000% right. Having boundaries with somebody oftentimes is loving them.
Amen to that.
Loving them does not always look like opening the arms for an open embrace to just kind of come in and do whatever you want.
Very true.
So chevrons, I got to bring, oh my gosh, I got to bring this all down. Chevrons, a lot of times we hold this up, like, is this the core message? Is this whatever? No, I don't think it was the core message of the whole show.
Really?
No, I don't. But I will say, it was a thread from the opening scene literally to the closing scene.
That's fair.
So it carried through. It was the through line, I think, that made us care about this episode, because without Tommy, who cares about Seth?
Yeah, exactly.
We had no connection to anybody on the inside until SG-1 went and got themselves locked up. Like, without Tommy, we didn't care. And to be able to turn around and put that back on Jacob and expand the Carter family a little bit, or quite a lot, actually, by a third anyway, or more.
Well, and you got a grandkid / niece on the board now.
Yeah. And apparently there's got to be a mom involved in that too. So, there is certainly that expanding. So Jeff, I think in looking at it through that lens of what this episode really comes down to, I'm going to give this one like 3.5 chevrons.
Really?
Like, yeah, I think it's a pretty strong message. Like it's right there on your face. And I mean, Tilk says the line, there are many things that are complicated. Loving your children ought not be.
It's a little low, I think, for where I would have gone, but I think it's a fair rating. I think it was more than a thread.
Yeah.
In this, I think in a lot of ways, the Seth storyline was a vehicle to have Jacob and Mark reconcile. The whole existence of Levinson and Tommy was the prime mover to get, Jacob and Mark to have some reconciliation. I think that was the story of the episode. The Seth stuff was just a vehicle to get us there.
Jeff, I think you're right. And, I think we talked about in the last episode, sometimes I'm still having problems with the 7 chevron scale. I'm going to bump this up to a 5.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Because I really do like, is it a 7? Like, this is what the whole episode was revolving around? No, but I do like it. Like I'm with you. Good point. I'm swayed. Now you sway me. Sometimes I sway you.
True.
Jeff, I rate you. Nope. Yep. I rate, you rank. Where are you ranking this one in our season 3, 100% completely accurate and definitive ranking of SG-1? We only have one episode out there right now. That number 1 episode is the episode from last week, which is Into the Fire. Jeff, where do you place this one?
This is very easy. This is our new number 2.
Oh,
Into the Fire that's going to be a tough episode to beat. I'm not going to lie.
Okay. All right.
They spent a lot of money on it. It shows. It was great. I said this is a good episode. I enjoyed it. This wasn't a great episode, but initial thought on it is I'm not going to skip this one on a rewatch necessarily. It's okay. It's number 2, and I'm going to go ahead and predict right now that it will not stay in the number 2 spot for long.
I mentioned to you earlier, like, this is one I usually skip, and I was watching the first half, and I'm like, why? It's right about the time I think when we meet Seth that I'm kind of like, oh yeah, the whole cult thing just. That's where it kind of, I don't want to say gets goofy or goes off the rails for me. It's just,
Yeah, it kind of just becomes like between the cult thing and the over-the-top ATF guy, it becomes a little tropey.
Tropey. That's a great word for it. But I will tell you, I very much appreciate the father-son relationships throughout this more than I ever have before, looking at it through that eyes. So
absolutely.
Good stuff. All right, Jeff. Well, that is going to do it for us here for the episode Seth. Would you like to know what we're watching next time?
I suppose.
All right. Oh, come on. Buck up, buckaroo.
I'm just nervous about guessing again. I'm just like, I'm getting a little.
Well, you should be able to get those things. I do think that the title does give this one away. Fair game.
Fair game.
Maybe it doesn't give it away, but.
Well, it could be a hunting episode, right? It's fair game. The human hunting one, the Island of Dr. Moreau.
Oh, yeah.
I bet we'll have that episode at some point. I don't think this is it. I think fair game. This is going to be the take me out to the holosuite of SG-1. They're going to end up on a planet and it's going to be some good relations or whatever, but like their culture is rooted in sport of some kind. In order for them to like really get relations moving, they're going to have to play their game.
Just out of curiosity, who was the Gould that took this group over?
It's a good question.
Zeus, Olympus. Oh, there you go.
Sure. Yeah. The Olympiad itself right there.
Right.
Yeah. I think they're going to have fun. They're going to play some sport and it'll be great.
All right. Well, you're a good guesser, Jeff.
Sure. Yeah.
And we'll see if that's what's going on right here next time on Stargate SG-1 for the first time. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Hey, don't forget wherever you are to like, subscribe, rate, review, all those sort of things. It just lets other people know how awesome we are here. And not so much how awesome we are here, just this great community we've got built up. Don't we, Jeff?
Amen to that. Come for the Stargate, stay for the people that are here. Like the community is incredible.
They really are. Really are. Absolutely.
We're just like we're the window dressing. The real stuff's inside.
Absolutely. So you guys make sure you do that. And hey, listen, be sure to share this podcast with somebody that you know who loves Stargate SG-1 or somebody who needs to get into the gate, just like my good friend Jeff over there. So with that, until next time, before Jeff stops me, I'm going to get out of here. Dang it. Missed it by that much. Yeah, Jeff, what's up?
You know how we're both kind of not feeling really well, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Do you know, just out of curiosity, how, with us not feeling well, how you can tell which one of us actually ruined this episode?
No.
It's the one whose nose is dripping.
Oh, for crying out loud.